Yeah.
Similarly, we human beings have a purpose. Just like your phone has a purpose, we have a purpose. So we do have these injunctions within the Quran where it talks about justice. And justice, as I keep repeating, is something which is very important. Hi, my name is Hashim. You are
Kieran.
Nice meeting you, Kieran. So my friend tells me that you have some questions or you want to, I don't know, discuss something about Islam or something.
I suppose the idea was that I think we was having a chat with some Christian gentlemen over the ways over there.
Right.
I think the original chat was about free will, wasn't we? Yeah. I can barely remember the stream of thoughts. We've had a conversation before this come out. It's about I think, yeah, that was it. I'm aware that Islam has a certain belief in predestination.
Predestination, okay, interesting topic, yeah.
And I think the topic we were talking about was free will and whether God in and of himself, is he capable of that caring relationship with humanity, if he can condemn humans to hell, and he already knows the outcome of their choices. Is that actually free will?
Right.
Is that true free will versus, because in the sense he's both created humans, they've made a choice, he's aware of the choice, and thereafter, is that just essentially something that he's allowing to play out to his own pleasure versus an actual caring aspect of God?
Yeah,
I suppose.
So we, as Muslims, we do not believe in hard determinism. I think that's what you're trying to question, if I understand correctly.
Okay. So what's the view then?
Yeah, so the Muslims, we believe that God obviously knows the future, but he also has given us free will. Yeah. So when he created us with this ability to choose to obey or disobey. So this free will, and it's something that when we grow up, obviously not when we are toddlers, when we come to an age of understanding, in most people this is like the age of puberty, but obviously in today's standard, like compared to before, your reasoning can fluctuate depending on your culture, what age you're living in. Back then people used to lead an army at the age of 14. Today, if you ask a 14-year-old, they'll be able to tell you how to operate an Xbox, but not how to lead an army. You see what I mean? Yeah. So it's the same age, different cultures, different time, different age of reasoning and understanding. It does differ between them. So yeah, when God created us, he gave us this ability of free will to choose between obedience and disobedience. Also, when he created us, he gave us a revelation as guidance for us as the do's and the don'ts. So he didn't just create us and leave us to fend for ourselves. If that makes sense. Yeah. Now, in terms of the actual destiny, it is us as human beings. Because of our free will and because of the guidance God has given us, we have all the tools to decide to obey or disobey. Now, if we do it with this free will, then we are the ones held accountable, and you can't hold God accountable for that. It's basically, if I give you the example of a classroom where the teacher has been teaching the class for an entire year. By the end of the year, before the exams, the teacher is able to tell which students are able to perform well and which are going to fail. Okay? Let's say they have the tests, the exams. When the results come, the teacher's prediction comes true. Would you then blame the teacher for that?
The teacher was responsible for teaching.
Yeah, but because the students who worked hard, they passed, and the students who did not work hard or did not care about any teaching, their studies, they failed. So how can you blame the teacher for their? Their failure is their own accountability, not the accountability of the teacher. If you see what I mean.
But that also presupposes the knowledge of the the consequences of failing.
Yeah, so in the case of God, his prediction also...
In a teaching scenario, say for example, we're studying maths and you're being told, okay, you have to learn this because if you don't learn this, you won't be able to get a good job.
Yeah.
Won't be able to be an engineer, for example.
Yeah.
Say that. You said that would those individuals who are learning the subject be able to fully comprehend?
No, I'm talking about the accountability of their result of their exams. You can never blame the teacher because the same teacher was teaching the same class throughout the year. So both the students who passed and failed were in the same class.
Yeah.
So you cannot say the teacher was accountable for the failure of the students. When the others could pass, why couldn't they? The only reason, as the teacher had predicted earlier, because they were not working hard enough. So they were being disobedient to the teacher in a way, because the teacher kept saying to them, study well in order to pass. So they kept rejecting that, the suggestion of the teacher. So you cannot blame the teacher for that.
Okay. So again, with this analogy, we're presuming that all the students in the class have the same baseline level of ability.
No, they have the same access to the same teacher. About their abilities, look, certain students can be more, they're more intelligent in comparison to the others. We are not talking about their level of performance in the class. What we are talking about is why did they fail when the other students who were taught under the same teacher
and the analogy is, those that pass go on. The analogy is to above and down below.
The analogy is to show that the accountability of failure or disobedience in the case of human beings to God, it rests with with the individual itself, because the individual has the free will to obey and disobey, just like the student in the class has a free will to either study or not study. Okay, so this is just a simple analogy. I mean, I'm sure it's more complex than that, but it's just to show you in terms
about complex things.
Yeah, of course, but I'm showing you in terms of accountability. How can you say the accountability lies with God? Because God did not force them to disobey.
No.
Yeah? There are people who are obedient. They had the same access to the same revelation which came from God, just like the people who are going to end up in hellfire because of their disobedience also had the same access to the revelation that God gave to everyone.
People's ability to make, I suppose this is we're thinking like this in a kind of are our morals based on our material circumstances partly as well? Because
that's a different topic now.
But it's relevant if we're talking about the moral choices that people make. So if someone makes a moral choice not to steal, they may be following the revelation. They may be saying, I have to obey this part of the moral code. But if they feel they have to steal in order to essentially stay alive or keep in work, because all these complex choices and a kind
in Islam that's permitted.
Is it?
Yeah. So once there was a famine, and Umar, one of the caliphs of Islam, he actually suspended that law of stealing and the consequences of that because of the famine. So when people are, so this is an exception, isn't it? Which is not the rule. So when there's an exception like starvation involved, then obviously people will steal when they can't live off whatever is available. Yeah. So this is a different matter. We are talking about normally stealing is wrong. Do you agree? Generally,
I'm not of that bend. I'm not. It's not a right-wrong thing for me. It's more of a.
So if people came to your home and they stole, that would be okay?
I don't know anything about them.
What do you mean you don't know about it?
So
do you lock your door when you sleep at night?
Yes.
Why?
Well, it's more because of violence and more because keeping the heat in. There's lots of different reasons. But
so if no violence is involved and people stole your really nice, expensive flat screen TV, you'll be okay with that?
I don't have a flat screen TV, but say for example, it was something I value.
Something valuable, yeah. Would you be okay with that?
I would be annoyed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
And I have been burgled before.
Yeah.
But
how did that feel?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't mind.
You must be a rich man.
I'm not a rich man. But I think I kind of, because like what ended up happening in that scenario when I was burgled is like I knew we found out who the people were, why they'd done the thing they did. I felt sorry for them. It was, I accept there's definitely circumstances where that's not
But look, you might be an exception. Most people don't want to be burgled. Trust me, it's not a norm. Okay, for people to get burgled.
Oh, I'm not saying I want to.
So you don't want to.
It's not something I want. It's the difference between wanting and whether you think you asked me if it was right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm asking.
That's a different question whether I want to be burgled.
Okay, is it right to get burgled by anyone?
That's to me. That's not a.
That's why I said you're not a normal. You're not a normal case. Most people consider stealing to be wrong.
Yeah, I think my personal philosophy is quite
exactly. So I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule, which don't make the law, which don't make the rule. Okay, the reason we have a police, and the police will come to somebody's home if they report the burglary. Yeah, just like you did.
I didn't report them. Well. Yeah.
They'll come to you. Why would they come if it didn't bother the society? The fact that we have law and order in every society, yes, so people don't steal, people don't kill someone. Okay, all these laws are there for a reason. Now, if morality was just fluid, like some people will say, oh, it's okay to steal, it doesn't harm, as long as it doesn't harm anyone. I think that's ridiculous. Because to me, property, most people, yes, they work quite hard to make sure that whatever they are purchasing is something of value or not even of high value. It's something that they spend money, which was from hard-earned money. Yeah. So people don't want to lose that just nilly-willy. They want to protect both their lives and the property. And this is the norm in every culture. It doesn't matter if they're utilitarian like you. It doesn't matter. Yeah? So let's not talk about exceptions to the rule. Let's talk about generally speaking.
What would you like to
So what I meant is, when you talk about morality, do you believe that there are certain things there are morals which are objective and not subjective all the time?
I think because it's just this idea that you can always find an exception to it. There's always a circumstance where.
But generally, I'm saying, generally speaking.
Generally speaking.
There are certain things which people don't want to.
Generally, no coercive activity, no violent activity towards another sovereign individual.
So there you go. So there are objective morals, and then there are subjective morals as well. But the question is who decides that? I can see. This is leading down the origin of the moral law argument by, I think C.S. Lewis makes an argument in Christianity on this. So I suppose another view of this would be you're going to get to the point where the origin of morality is from God. Yeah, because I'm a theist, so I believe God is. Yeah. By the way, do you believe in God? Because I didn't ask.
Agnostic.
You're agnostic. Okay.
Yeah. So is God? I'm not. No,
that's fine. Nothing offends us. No. We have been asked all sorts here.
No. I'm trying to make a point, but I've forgotten. It comes from. There's a dialogue by Plato called Euthyphro, and I think he asks. I'll misattribute it, and it will be wrong.
Fine. So going back to the question, who decides what's moral or not?
I think we as a society do, because you said earlier that different cultures have have ideas about what is right and wrong.
So that's the subjective morals.
If this, for example, might not be possible in a culture like China or a culture like Iran, it depends where you are. So going back to the subjective and objective morality. Okay.
So what you just mentioned, I believe that's subjective morality.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you think anyone has a right to say that this is objective morality which every human in the world has to follow?
It's just if anyone can enforce anything. any specific person.
Sorry.
Objective morality, yeah?
What, yeah.
So who has the right to determine that, basically? That's
Who has
the
a
question.
right to?
Yeah. Who has the right to determine objective morality?
I mean,
because subjective
300
morality
years
is up
ago
to
would
everyone,
be
isn't it? It's Freud. Say again, sorry?
About 300 years ago, it would have been the king.
Yeah, I suppose that, but that wouldn't
Yeah.
be every human in the world either. It's just his kingdom,
No.
isn't it?
No.
So that's still, in a way, subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though he has the right to determine
Well, the
what is
argument-
right and wrong,
he had the
but it
divine
still only
right.
applies to his
Yeah.
kingdom. It wouldn't apply outside the kingdom, would it?
No.
Yeah. You're right? Yeah, alhamdulillah. Come on, you might be you might be able to answer the brother's question. So we're talking about objective and subjective morality.
I think I know what you're going to ask, like euphoria's dynamic.
Yeah, because it's been a while since I've heard it. I think it's the idea that is an action good because of its inherent value, or is it good because of God? And therefore, if it's good because of its inherent value, why do we need God? I can't remember what the obverse of it
Yeah,
was.
but-
I'm half remembering
Yeah.
something that I've read about. It's quite interesting,
But the inherent value, I mean, still somebody has to decide that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, the morality doesn't speak up to you. Oh, I'm moral. It is still a human decision to make that value decision, you see?
yeah,
It's not up to, it's not the morality itself, because the morality is an abstract thing which doesn't talk.
Yeah.
But you, as a human being, then give it value, depending on the degree of the value, which country, which community you belong to.
Yeah.
You might have a different value as well. So the same morality might have different value elsewhere. Yeah? So again, that would be subjective, would it not?
So what's an objective morality to you? What is objective?
So for me as a
You've
Muslim,
asked me a lot.
yeah,
so
fair
go
enough. So
ahead.
because you asked me, my response is from a Muslim perspective, because I'm a
course,
Muslim. And for me, the do's and don'ts are in the revelation which God gives us. So as I mentioned earlier, when God created us, He did not just leave us to fend for ourselves. He gave us the free will, but He also gave us the guidance, the do's and the don'ts. Just like you, when you buy any product, for example, this camera or the phone in your pocket, it comes with a user guide and it tells you the do's and don'ts. So for example, if your phone is not waterproof and you misuse it or abuse it by putting it in water, go for a swim, then you're not following the guideline and your phone is going to then malfunction because of that. Yeah? Similarly, we human beings have a purpose. Just like your phone has a purpose, we have a purpose. Yes? Every single organ, attributes that we have has a purpose as well. And God tells us how to use and not to abuse them. And then this is where the obedience and disobedience comes. So if you follow the revelation of God Almighty, then these are the morals God has given us. For example, everything that's forbidden or prohibited or haram in Islam, you will certainly agree with. I mean, generally human beings would agree with. For example, God tells us not to murder, not to tell lies, not to steal, not to, abuse somebody else's rights, not to fornicate, not adultery is prohibited, alcohol is prohibited, gambling is prohibited. All the prohibitions or haram things are something which will make sense to most human beings. So everything that you see that's prohibited in Islam, I mean, you will come to the conclusion, yes, this is bad for the... Take alcohol, for example. Many people would say alcohol is good for me, okay? I'm not harming anyone. But they don't realize that they're harming themselves first and foremost. They're harming their body. When you're in a state of being intoxicated, you might harm somebody, though you might say this is not deliberate. But at the end of the day, there is consequences to that. But Islam nips it in the bud, says no, it's forbidden. Alcohol is forbidden. It doesn't give you any benefit. It actually, there's more harm than good.
You could say that about a lot of other things. Right?
Exactly, yeah. So all the other things like gambling.
It doesn't prohibit, for example, sugar, for example. Why doesn't the Quran?
So are you saying sugar, would you compare sugar to alcohol?
From a healthcare perspective, probably
Okay,
yes.
so a recent study which has been published in peer-reviewed journals.
Which journal?
It's actually, I forgot the name. Just let me bring it up. But it's
Like refined sugar, right?
yeah.
And at that time,
I'm talking about
sugar.
essentially,
It's called the Lancet. Yeah, I just remembered.
my colloquial use of the word sugar is referring to things like what's in Coca-Cola, what's in sweet sweets and what's added to things like you know, a lot of processed foods, for example.
So you're from a medical background?
Yes.
You heard of the Lancet?
Yes.
Okay, that's where it's published.
Right.
Now this is a medical journal which is well respected.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they actually come to the conclusion that even small quantities are harmful.
Yeah.
Yes. Now they wouldn't say. I don't think there's any peer-reviewed studies which say small quantities of sugar is harmful, like the way alcohol is. Is there any such study?
I mean, there's millions of such. I wouldn't be able to say.
No, if there is, let me know, because I would like to learn as well.
I'm more thinking about if we're thinking about just sugar as a whole. We generally think of when we think of things like alcohol, we think of things like gambling, and my minds think of the worst potential for what that thing can do. So,
like sugar at the time they wouldn't be refined sugar, but there's claims about adulterated food, which could be preservatives and stuff that they put in sugar that's harmful.
Yeah. Like the genetically modified stuff. All that
sugar is very addictive. When we think about the sheer amount of people that got type 2 diabetes.
So basically, Islam, there's a general rule in the Quran not to harm your body.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to eat fatty food, you're going to eat lots of sugar. That is also then that comes under that ruling, the general ruling not to harm your body.
Okay.
Do you understand? So we have this already taken care of in the Quran.
Yeah.
Not to harm your body, not to kill yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
All these things are there. Then comes gambling. I mean, if you look at people who gamble, they don't only destroy their own life.
I just find it as a.
Yeah, go on.
When you mention like not harm the body. Do you know what some of the highest rates of type 2 diabetes are in America?
Where?
Utah.
Why?
Mormons don't drink. Mormons don't even have caffeine. They don't.
Sorry,
gamble.
type 2?
Type 2 diabetes, as in acquired.
So if I mention a country in Asia which has type 2 diabetes and they do drink, what do you say then?
More.
I would rather go with the Lancet because they have done a proper objective.
Drinking, right?
Yeah, they do an objective studies.
Yeah.
Okay, which is
No. I'm not trying to have a social. I just an observation that I find that.
How do you link that to alcohol?
So when people don't have access to certain things, they binge on others. I think that there is a certain. This idea that
are you saying they binge on sugar because they can't drink alcohol? Seriously?
Cultural, right? Depending on the food that they eat.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. Yeah.
So, I mean, on the whole,
like if you look in
So I live in East London, so
if you look
there's quite a lot of obviously.
If you live in London, you'll see that the people from the Black and the Asian communities, they are more susceptible to heart attacks or even diabetes, like you said. So I don't think it's anything to do with the fact that they're not drinking alcohol or drinking alcohol. Is the fact that, like you said, like the lifestyle that they follow. Okay, we like our samosas and mithais, we like our sugary stuff.
But as you say, lifestyle is infused by religion and traditions as well.
Not necessarily. I mean, some people like more sugary stuff. It's nothing to do with religion. I'm pretty sure. It's just a culture you're like.
very simple. The laws are prescribed about the way you should eat, and the person doesn't abide by it. It doesn't mean that there could be a Muslim person not abiding by the way you should eat. It doesn't mean that it's a religion.
In Morocco, if diabetes was a sport, they'd win the gold medal every time. Yeah? Not that they're over binging on, sugary stuff, but tea, green tea, you can put a spoon in it or stay stood up. Yeah,
that's the amount of sugar
I
they put in it.
Turkish coffee is a bit like that.
Tea.
It's a cup of sugar.
So it's a lifestyle, I guess.
We were on something else, weren't we, before we got on to
Say again?
what we were on before?
Yeah, we were talking about the prohibitions that Islam. So everything that we were talking about objective and subjective morality. What I'm saying is that we need an arbitrator in order to decide who says what is right and what is wrong. Because if it's always going to be subjective, then we'll never come to a conclusion collectively as to what really is objectively moral or immoral.
Can we not put it as any morality that is universally accepted?
Yeah, that's objective.
Yeah, I think that everyone will agree. If they look at it logically, gambling is not good for you, alcohol is not good it's very obvious.
Like take rape for an example. I mean, most countries would say rape is a capital offense and something that should be punished regardless of who does it. Yeah. So there are things like that where we have come to an understanding collectively that this would be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you have such objective
I mean,
morality,
there's a difference between general principles versus like this idea of not being violent and coercive to other people versus an objective hard and fast.
But what if there was a reason for this violence? For example, a police chasing down a criminal who is armed.
Someone entering your house.
Yeah. I think he doesn't mind that.
I mean,
So he's an exception. But yeah, normally you have law and order where they can use reasonable violence, amount of violence. They can. Same thing with wars, just wars. Do you agree there are the just war rule?
I mean, it's a Catholic concept, isn't it?
It's not a euphemism. This is real.
No. We did it in my GC RE.
Because there are people who would oppress weaker countries, and they would attack them just because they happen to be stronger.
I think the concept of a just war came out historically kind of near the time of the Crusades, so I'm not really sure whether it's a bit convenient. But
I'm pretty sure there were wars before that.
Yeah,
to justify it.
No, but just the phrase.
Basically, look, any oppression, if it doesn't, if the politicians who are involved in this, they cannot come to terms in a peaceful manner, then the next course of action usually is war. Yeah. So they would try all methods, all peaceful methods, and if that doesn't work out, then they have to be taken out by force. Because you cannot just take over a sovereign country like that, especially after the nation states that have been established after the UN has been established. This is post-World War II, when the nation states. So today it's almost impossible to go and take over a sovereign country without facing a war. Yeah?
Unless you're Israel, of course.
Yeah. few exceptions.
Question.
Yeah, so my question was, because you mentioned violence without using
I'll let him go.
Without using violence or stuff like that. I said there are cases where that is also required, unfortunately. Yes, so we cannot say we live in a perfect society, a utopian society where there's no violence at all. Certain times this is required by the law enforcement or by someone who's oppressing another country to take whatever you have in terms of the coalitions, like we've seen in the case of the Gulf Wars or in the case of Ukraine right now. People would go to war because other countries are oppressing. So in order to establish justice, I would say force is required sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, would you agree?
Okay. Who decides who decides who gets to use that force?
Well, the people, I would say, like right now, it is when you see another country, and like I said, in the nation states where you have a body like the UN, you can say the country itself would go and seek out help from other countries, like the case of Kuwait during the first Gulf War, or like the case of Ukraine right now. Yeah, these countries, when they were attacked by a foreign or by the neighbor, they went and asked for help, and then whoever had the means, they would help them. Usually, some sort of a superpower would come to the aid. And this is again, it's human nature,
If you had moral leaders, that wouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be in that situation in the first place. So it comes down to morality. If you've got a leadership that is immoral,
Isn't that an oxymoron?
Internally, but externally showing that they're not.
Because the bottom line is to establish justice. That is the bottom line.
Who is a moral leader?
So now you need a criteria, and from our perspective, the criteria is the Quran.
Yeah.
Okay.
So otherwise, without criteria,
But in terms of specific to leadership, we're talking about leadership in particular. Quran's big book.
so we would take references from that.
So what would be your if you had to draw up a list of things that you wanted, I'm not representing all this, it's just an old worktop.
The first thing I would want to...
Well, the first thing is justice. The one who establishes justice. That's the most important thing. Okay, many people get this emotion.
If there's any kind of oppression, that means that that's an immoral leader. You need justice as a defining
absolutely factor
of a leader.
Yeah.
And the problem is that any kind of morality that changes over time cannot be morality, because morality is like internal. Everyone knows. Deep inside, everyone knows what is right and what is wrong. So if you've got a leader that has moral values, that leader will be a just leader. Okay. Justice is pretty clear. Justice means that you're not going to oppress, you're not going to keep people down, you're not going to take advantage. And they're very few nowadays.
I mean, that was just to answer your question about why violence would be required. So there are instances where violence is necessary, where force is necessary to establish justice. Yeah. And that is the reason most of the law enforcements in any country, in most countries, they have arms to deal with this. Why? Yeah. Because that would be required sometimes. Yeah, it's human nature to do wrong when somebody is not observing you. So take the example of,
He's violence there.
Take the example. Okay, I don't know who was doing the injustice there. Okay.
He's a lot bigger.
I was talking about when it's human nature to commit wrong when you're not being observed. Yeah. And this has been tested by many people doing studies of this kind of nature. I mean, take traffic cameras, for example. When there are no traffic cameras, people tend to speed up. But when there are traffic cameras and they know they'll be penalized and there's going to be consequence, then they slow down. Why is that? Because this is human nature. Similarly, we require someone who is an arbitrator, who overlooks, like the traffic camera, that we do not go beyond our means in terms of either oppression or doing something wrong, and we believe that is God Almighty.
If you construct a society, like if we mention these like traffic cameras, various other things, you could legislate or implement various kind of things to have a society that's modelled on, say, the Quran, modelled on any book you choose, any guidance you choose. Have you heard of the idea of the panopticon?
The what?
The panopticon.
No, I don't.
It's the so-called perfect prison. It's the idea that... Prison, yeah. Okay. It's the idea that if you're a prisoner, like hundreds of prisoners being watched by one person at the centre of a room.
Right.
The prison guard can see all the prisoners at the same time, but the prisoners cannot see the prison guard.
Yeah, it's like the CCTV.
So they know they're being watched, but they don't know when. They don't know who by, they don't know for how long, they don't know how many prison guards.
Right.
But the idea, would you feel, if you're in that scenario, and we can contextualize that to a broader society where you feel like constantly watched, being constantly judged, constantly measured against certain standards, all your actions, you're worried about certain.
Isn't that called China?
Could be, or could be. You can several societies throughout history.
The social.
Doesn't have to be a prison, but you move that out into broader society if you have a certain level of just legislation.
What's the point of such a prison?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Why? So the reason is I think if you modelled a society on the Quran, I would worry that you'd have a scenario like that.
No, but the Quran doesn't put you in a prison. The Quran Allah gives you free will.
I'm not talking about, but I'm not talking about a.
Oh, you're still being watched.
A physical prison.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'm talking about the idea that you have in your head that you're always being watched and judged.
Isn't that a good thing? Because the whole idea of this prison or the traffic camera.
Free will is an illusion. Free will is only a free will when you feel like you have the choice. I think that's the danger.
If you're being watched, and you have no guideline, then that can be terrifying. You don't know whether you're doing right or wrong. If you have a guideline and you're being watched, no, it's very clear.
Yeah.
But when you say freedom it's an illusion. Every morning when you wake up, do you believe you have freedom to do what you want?
No.
You don't?
No.
Why is that?
I can't charter a private plane somewhere, can I?
Did you come here by your free will, or did somebody force you to come here?
No one forced me to come here.
So it is free, right?
But there's certain, but I don't have total free will. There's certain things. There's not anything.
No, of course.
Limited by my individual circumstances.
As I mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as absolute freedom or absolute freedom of speech or anything like that. And we don't live in an utopia where we have such things. We live in a real world, but generally we feel free. Like in most countries, we feel free to walk around. We're not in China, like you said.
Yeah.
So we do feel free to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you said, nobody forced you to come here. You came by your free will. Yeah. So you do have free will, right?
Yeah, I made a sovereign choice.
You could choose to talk to him, or you could choose.
Yeah, I think we kind of digressed from the original point about morals. Yeah.
Sorry.
So you understand something?
Your example being watched.
Yeah.
Make sure you do the right thing. That's about punishment if you don't do it right now.
Yeah.
Islamic society under Islam, it's about doing the right thing so you get your reward later.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody kind of buys into that. Yeah. It's not about do this and you'll get punished, or don't do that and you'll get punished. It's about agreeing because you get benefit out of it.
Yeah.
Benefit here and benefit in the hereafter.
Do you feel if someone did a favour for you, no matter what it is, say for example, they're lifting boxes up a set of stairs for you, they're helping you move house, or they're fixing your car, would you feel better knowing that they've done it out of their own? That they've given to you freely versus whether you paid them?
In an Islamic society, that they can do freely, and they help you because they want to help you, or they can walk on by.
What do you mean by payment? So goodwill normally, or good gesture, or anything like that. If you're asking for like physical payment, is that what you mean?
I'm just more the kind of the analogy I'm trying to make is that is an act truly good if you're doing it with an ulterior motive, and I find that this idea that the reward and the hereafter is in a sense a kind of expected ulterior motive.
The reward for the hereafter.
Yeah.
There's somebody helping me now. I am safe in the belief that they wanted to help me. They don't have to. They can walk on by.
And they do get something from it. Even if it's not money, they may get self-value, they may get love, they may get act of doing that may unconsciously be a reason why they want to.
Do you know in Islam, just to smile is charity. Just smiling, you get a reward for it. Mm-hmm. So there are many things in Islam where you get a reward for it. It doesn't mean that you're smiling because you're getting a reward. You're smiling, the reward is a bonus. The fact that you're smiling, you must be happy, right? Mm-hmm. Your smile made somebody else happy.
He's smiling, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what. Look, it's.
What about smiling when you see your parents?
Yeah. So I mean, look, every deed you do, which is pleasing to God, which is halal, which is permitted, you will get the reward for it. Yeah. If not in this world, in the hereafter, definitely. Yeah.
I think it's very different. I don't think a Muslim person consciously smiles knowing that they're going to get a reward. So if you are brought up with good moral values, you will naturally smile and be good without even thinking about the reward, because you know that morality will give you the reward, maybe on an unconscious. I don't think they think, okay, I'm going to be nice to him now, but that will give me a reward in the hereafter. I mean, if you think like that, you'll never be.
And it's not just for the good things you do. It's also like for things which you do, forgiveness, for example. So there was, I think it was in America where this, or maybe in Indonesia, I remember correctly, where their child got murdered by this guy.
Yeah.
And the parent went to the court. The convicted murderer was remorseful, and this parent, forgives him. Okay, an old man, he says, I forgive you, even though I've lost a child. In fact, it was his only son or something. He lost his child and he forgives. You know, so this is one of the options in Islam, that when there is a murder involved, the victim's family has a right to either seek blood money, seek forgiveness, or seek capital punishment as well. 3 options being given to them. So it's not up to the jury, it's not up to the judge, but it's up to the victim's family, because they are the ones who have been hurt. Yeah, they are the ones who suffered the most loss. Yeah, because the jury can have any reason. You could have a really nice lawyer who could, I don't know,
manipulate.
Yeah, who could sweet talk his way, and reminds me of O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
Where he's quite a wealthy person. Yeah, you can have a nice lawyer who can actually knows the system and who knows how to manipulate using language, and he can get away with it. But you see, in Islam, this has been given the option of what the consequences the perpetrator suffers is based on the victim's family. Yeah, so there are many things like this which Islam, like I said, Allah is the best in terms of being the arbitrator as to decide what is moral, what is right and what is wrong. And He's our creator. Just like I said, your phone, the one who manufactured, they know best the product. We are the product of the Almighty. He knows us best. He knows our weaknesses, He knows our strength.
I think another way to look at it, if you list down all the moral values that are written in the Quran to run a society, and then simulate, for example, what would the society look like if it was run under that model? You'll find it'll be very just.
Do you think a society has been run like that?
Yes, in the first generation of Islam,
Okay.
Like during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the first 4 caliphs, they called it the golden era.
Yeah, the rightly guided. Yeah.
The Khairul Qurun, the best of the era of the Muslims, and they did run it justly. So there was an instance where the caliph was actually, I think it was Ali radiallahu anhu, whose shield was with a non-believer or something. And he forgot about it, and the Jewish person who was a disbeliever, he actually asked for it in the court of justice, because Ali was saying it was his, and he was saying, no, it is mine, I lent it to you. I mean, I might not remember exactly the wordings of it, but it goes something like that. And when it came to the court, it was actually in favor of the Jewish person, because he was able to prove it. Yeah. So even if the person is the caliph, or if the person is like quite a leader who's well respected and people would listen to him and obey his command and so on, but in the court of law, yes, they have to establish justice regardless of their background, their religion, their creed, everything. You know, there's a verse in the Quran which says that do justice even if it goes against you, against your own self. Be it your kith and your kin, even if it goes against them, you still have to establish justice. Yeah. So we do have these injunctions within the Quran where it talks about justice, and justice, as I keep repeating, is something which is very important. Yes, the Christians keep repeating love. It doesn't mean the Muslims don't love, but to me, love without justice is meaningless. Yeah. So you can, the people in Israel can keep saying we love the Palestinians as much as they want, but if there is injustice where their lands have been stolen and taken away, then you will never see the true love. I mean, the Palestinians will never feel the true love. It's just lip service, basically. Yeah. See what I mean? And that's the reason justice takes foremost place in the top of the list when it comes to governing any country, any society, or even within the family itself.
Justice within Islam is truly blind. Have you ever read the Quran?
I'm not cover to cover. I've had a copy in the past.
Okay. So have you had a chance to look into Islam?
I've read
yours free, gratis, and fantastic.
MashaAllah, you got a free copy of the Quran. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much.
Have you looked into Islam at all?
I've read bits and bobs, and I had a lot of. The school I went to is quite a lot of physics.
What's your understanding about God? Because you said you're an agnostic. I mean, have you looked into?
I think the it's one of those things where I cannot say whether there is a God or whether there is not a God. It's not a question that.
What would be your definition of God? What do you when you think of God? What do you think of?
I know what you'd say, and you'd say it's. Sorry?
He wants, because it's a Quran, you need to respect it. And I understand it's.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
You can hang it on the
Yeah,
It's not on the not on the floor.
That's fine, no problem.
I'll hold it if you like. Is that all right? Yeah.
No, let him keep it in his hand. That's fine.
Well, I think the idea most familiar with is a supreme being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that a person or what?
And for a lot of definitions you come across, it's an uncaused first cause. Yeah.
Okay. So what would convince you? Don't forget about everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget about whether you're Muslim or Christian or what have you. What would convince you of God?
I think this is the story that most people have. I think it's generally, for a lot of people, it's a personal experience, isn't it? I don't really have.
No, he's asking, what's your criteria?
Yeah.
What's my criteria?
What would convince you that God exists?
Personal experience.
Don't know. I think it's a personal experience, isn't it? It's a very.
Okay, let me rephrase the question.
So,
where do you think the universe came from?
here.
Where?
Here.
What do you mean here? Here didn't exist.
Exactly.
Here didn't exist.
But neither.
The universe, we are part of here.
Yeah.
And the here is part of the universe. But I'm asking, before, the universe,
Yeah.
most scientists, they say it's like 13.75 billion years old. So there was a point before that when the universe didn't exist. So the question is, where did the universe come from?
But likewise, time didn't exist.
Yeah. They say time and space didn't exist.
But then, if
Which
time
is the
doesn't
universe,
exist,
which is what scientists like Stephen Hawking, when they wrote the story of time, they mentioned this. That time and space started with the singularity.
right.
Okay, so the question still remains: where did it come from? Where did the singularity come from?
Not a physicist.
No, these are physicists.
Yeah, I'm not a physicist.
Yeah, you don't need to. This is
I think the problem.
I'm not a physicist either,
No.
but it's something which we as human beings have definitely pondered upon.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure you have as well. So what do you think? What is the most plausible explanation?
Can nothing bring nothing? Can nothing bring anything to exist?
Don't jump the gun, let him think.
I mean, I've thought of that before. It's not
Exactly.
jumping the-
I'm sure you thought. Everyone ponders on this question.
I mean,
it's not just you.
this is the cosmological argument. This is
Yeah.
what this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can nothing brew nothing? Well, you're going to expect me to say no.
No, I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted to
because
say.
if I say yes, you'll go
Tell us
okay.
what you think. Don't give us the answer that we're expecting you, because
We're not assuming anything about you. Let's put it that way.
But I think that
It's a blank slate. We're not assuming anything about you.
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to Hashim, it doesn't matter to him or me,
Yeah.
because we've already got to that conclusion. Yeah, we're already there. It depends to you what you think.
I suppose it's more of a thing where you've got a chessboard and you can see a lot of different moves,
Yeah.
the way they can go. You go over some of those ways the argument can go. I think they're just arguments in my head. The question, we're talking about such a big thing in terms of the universe, in terms of where it's come
Okay,
from.
let me narrow it down for you.
Yeah.
You believe in cause and effect?
As in,
Like
I
every
put you go backwards.
yeah, like everything,
I go
every
backwards.
effect has a cause.
I drop this.
Yeah.
I put this on the floor. He's not very pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every effect has a cause.
Yes.
For example, if you wanted to make a cup of tea,
Yeah.
you would want to boil water. Now the water has to boil. That is a cause. That's the effect.
Yeah.
What is the cause? It's the heat, either electric or fire, whatever it is you're using. Yeah. So everything that you see has cause and effect.
Okay.
Every contingent thing has a cause.
Yes.
Yes, the universe began to exist at some point, which is contingent, which means it's not independent, it's dependent on something outside of it.
Yeah.
Hence, it must have a cause. Yeah?
Right.
Now, that cause cannot be nothing, like the gentleman said earlier, because by definition, nothing doesn't even exist. Do you agree?
Does the number 0 exist?
It's an abstract number.
But nothing exists.
Does number 1 exist? Does number 1 exist? Have you seen it?
No.
Exactly. These abstract things, you can't say they exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so abstract means it's just a concept in a way.
Yeah.
Yes?
But
Nothing.
also abstracting about the universe.
No. The universe exists. The universe is not abstract.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's distinguish between existence and non-existence.
Yeah.
Nothing, where does it lie in the two?
But if you go small enough,
Doesn't matter how small you go.
no, it does actually. Because if you go small enough,
Okay, what's the smallest number you can think of?
I'm not thinking about numbers at the moment. I'm talking about in terms of
What?
In terms of quantum physics, it's actually
Yeah. You, when you think of nothing, what are you thinking of?
matter can exist in a sense in a probability. It's in the idea that certain electrons can exist in one moment but not in the other.
No, that's just a state, but they still exist.
But they might not exist in the next moment.
It doesn't matter.
I'm in and out.
I mean, you're talking about time now. You're talking about time. That's different. I'm just talking about.
They're not
I'm
the same
talking about
electron.
absolute nothingness doesn't exist. It's a concept.
What I'm trying to convey is that you're talking about nothingness like it doesn't exist.
I'm using the term absolute nothingness.
Absolute nothingness.
Yes.
I see nothing in the universe.
Absolute nothingness. Does it exist?
I don't know because I'm not there.
Okay, define nothing. Let's start with that.
Give us a definition.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Okay, I'll give you a definition. Tell me if you agree or disagree with it.
Right. Okay. Go.
The absence of everything.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, which one's more accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was an absence of everything, then it's nothing.
Okay.
And nothing by definition doesn't exist because then it would be a thing if it did exist.
Okay.
Yeah? So let's distinguish between the two. Now, if something doesn't exist, can it bring about something that does exist? Remember, it doesn't exist. It's absolute nothingness. Can it then bring about something? Because now it's not an agent. You're not talking about an agent.
Yeah.
You're talking about absolute nothingness means it does not exist at all.
No.
Okay? Not even as a figment of imagination, because that would be something still. That would be an illusion and imagination, even though in reality it might not exist, but in your thoughts it does exist. But I'm talking about not even that.
Yeah.
Because when I ask you to think about nothing, that's impossible.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah? I know you're trying, but it's hard. Yeah. So when it doesn't even exist, then it's clearly cannot bring about something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we go to step 2. Did the universe bring about itself when it didn't even exist? Is that plausible? It didn't exist. Can it then bring about itself? It's like it's like a mother giving birth to itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, no, it can't.
Okay, so we have ruled out 2 things. One is
Right.
nothing. One is the universe bringing about itself. What else is left? Give me another plausible
There needs to
cause.
be a prime mover.
Yes.
Yeah. Someone needs to
Yeah.
push the rock off the hill.
Yeah. So this prime mover needs to have certain qualities or
Yeah.
attributes. Can you name a few?
Why does it need to have certain attributes?
Well, everything that exists has attributes.
Because those attributes will define it as to whether it's truly a cause or an effect.
But
Then it will be called the prime mover.
okay, but as a prime
Because of those
mover-
attributes.
But as a prime mover,
Yeah.
it has to exist in nothingness.
Sorry?
But if
Say again. I didn't
so
quite
you
get
said we're saying there's a prime mover,
Yeah.
okay, to cause the universe.
Yeah.
But the logic there, the kind of the circular nature of that, in order to have attributes, it has to exist in. It has to exist,
Yeah, exactly.
but not in nothingness.
Sorry?
But not in nothingness.
Oh, wait.
It has to exist.
Wait.
But you've already said there's nothing. So you can't have a.
The prime mover is not nothing. And
So there's not nothingness.
but now you're talking in spatial terms where you think in order for the prime mover to exist, it needs space and time. Is that what you're saying?
We just said we need to have attributes.
Yeah, attributes. Attributes means what? Like for example, if it's a prime mover, it must have at least a will.
Okay.
Yeah. It must exist. It must be eternal as well. So not to fall into the infinite regress issue problem.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are at least the basic attributes that this prime mover has to have. Do you not agree?
So why that prime mover and not several?
Because then you would have the conflict of wills. For example, if there was...
I mean, there's one before it, one before it, one before it. Why is there just one?
Yeah, remember the infinite regress I told you about?
Yeah, but
that
why
would be
is
the
it?
issue.
But why is it?
It has to stop somewhere. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, you know
But then that thing has to have a thing to start.
When you said prime mover, you said something else along with it.
Remind me.
Yeah, it was the one who, like if you have a dominoes, a set of dominoes, there must be the first domino, someone to throw down.
Pushes the rock off the...
Yeah.
Somebody to push the first domino in order to have that effect.
There still needs to be...
So the prime mover is that. Now, if the prime mover, if there was someone along with it, okay, then that wouldn't be the prime mover. Then you left someone before it. Then you would have that infinite regress. Now, if you have infinite regress, we wouldn't exist then, because that would be an infinite chain which would never stop, and then the reality wouldn't be there at all. It's like if I can explain it in terms of the example of a library where somebody is going to take a book, okay, to borrow a book from the library, and there are people in front of you, and this line is infinite. Will you ever collect the book? Because the line is infinite. You will never collect the book. Hence, you cannot have this multiple prime movers. There has to be one who is the cause, uncaused cause.
So we're at the stage where we have an uncaused cause.
Yeah.
Okay. That solves one philosophical quandary in a way, in the idea that there has to be a beginning to the universe.
Yeah. So this prime mover is not contingent on anyone. Everything else can be otherwise. Okay, so universe, for example, can exist or not exist. Wouldn't make a difference. But the prime mover has to exist. It's not contingent on anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the basic attributes of the prime mover. And one of them is the will. The will means the ability to action things, to cause the universe, for example. Yeah, which we spoke about.
Yeah.
Now, do you agree so far?
I agree with the logic, but not necessarily the direction of travel.
Yeah, my friend, logic is the best thing we have.
I'm more comfortable with I'm perfectly comfortable with the idea of
a god?
Of a... Think of it like a filling that gap, but it doesn't lead me anywhere else.
In other words, you're saying you're getting answers. It's just not.
No. It's more like happy to kind of solve the equation on either side.
Yeah, and you're using logic and rational.
Well,
this is the best.
It's filling a gap. It's not the whole picture.
Well, you can call it fill in the blank if you want. I don't mind. That's fine with me. But the important thing is you're using your faculty of reasoning, which is the most important aspect a human being has. That is what differentiates us from the animals. Yeah, the reason we have civilizations, the reason we have literature, we have libraries, we have inventions, we go to the Mars. All these things differentiates us from the rest of the creation. Do you not agree?
I don't think we're as different from animals as you think.
Really?
Element of choice, right?
No, I mean orcas, for example, display elements of culture. They have shared learning activities.
Yeah, but they don't have rationality. Do you agree?
Well, it depends how you define rationality.
I just told you, for you to have the ability is to have all this progress.
Are we making decisions based on the information you have available to you? Is that what you...
Yeah, because the animals behave based on instinct. You do it based on rationality.
We climbed up all the way up to the top, right? Where you're saying we're filling this gap. And now we've dropped all the way down talking about
animals.
In reality.
I didn't bring up animals. No. I didn't bring up animals. It's just...
No, we do differentiate ourselves from animals. Yeah.
There is a point at which you stop. Yeah?
Yeah.
And this is the primary cause, the primary player, the thing or that which has has caused everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if you were to drill down, you got matter, and then you've got atoms, and then within atoms you've got protons and electrons, and within those there are quarks and subquarks and all that kind of lovely stuff. And even in string theory, it says when you get down to the bottom, to the tiniest bit, it's a string of energy that vibrates at a particular frequency, and that's what gives that particular piece of matter its properties. But there's still energy there. There's something that's created there. That's the primary cause. Now, what we're saying, what Brother Hasham is saying, is that entity has to have certain qualities in order.
Everything that exists must have attributes. Okay, and that's the reason I'm saying if all of this universe did not create itself, did not come from nothing, then the only plausible explanation is an external agent, which you call the prime mover, not me, which requires which has these attributes, and that's the only way we can explain plausibly